Hi guys, I never like using material from the scum, but I wanted to show you this interview Robert Jenrick did with Hary Cole, who incidentally blocked me on social media. Anyway, I'm getting a tad worried, because it seems once again Farage says jump and the Tories say how high. Now that anything close to sanity has left the leadership race and we're left with Badenoch and Jenrick, both seem to be advocating for leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. From the people who took away your freedom of movement, they're now coming for the convention that protects your human rights. Here Honest Bob says he wants to leave the ECHR without a referendum. Oh my God, have a listen.
One example, it's your headline sort of flagship policy to leave the ECHR without a referendum. Just do it, make it party policy, make it happen. Will you require, should you win, every single member of your shadow cabinet to agree to that before you give them a job?
Well, I want to use this leadership election to have a mandate for that. So the membership will, I hope, support me in this because they understand how important it is to get a grip on this. And then it will be added to the stable of Conservative Party policies.
But would you allow, your shadow cabinet members not to sign up to that flagship issue and serve in your team?
Well, I want a broad church, but we've got to have a common creed. We've got to have a sense of what does the party actually believe in. And that would be one of our party's policies. Absolutely. So if we win the next election, we do it on a manifesto that commits to that. And so anyone who stands at that election obviously would be supporting
so every candidate,
that policy.
Every candidate at the 2029 election, or whatever it's going to be, would have to sign up to the Jenrick mantra of leave the ECHR.
Yeah, it will be one of our policies at that election.
Well, that's going to be an issue, though, isn't it? Because lots of your MPs, your colleagues, don't want to leave the ECHR. In fact, they did quite a lot, it seems, yesterday to try and stop you going through to the members' votes purely on that issue that they don't want to have this fight.
Well, firstly, I don't agree with that. I think that there is now a growing consensus that the ECHR is just not working in the interests of the British people. You see that now. By even my opponents in this contest have said that we need to reform it. My point is that reform is impossible. In fact, it's a fantasy. There's 46 member states, from Andorra to Iceland to Turkey. You're never going to get agreement between them all as to what we should do to fix this. So you've got to leave. It's leave or remain. I'm for leave. I hope that this leadership election will give us the mandate to do that. We'll settle the issue and then we'll get over this migration issue, the running sore of British politics, and talk about all the other things we care about, the NHS, education, how we can get homes built for young people, how we can get real growth going again in our economy.
When I said here we go again, it sounds exactly like Brexit. We leave the European Union, then we can focus on fixing the NHS, building houses, doing all these things that we can't do at the moment. The EU is stopping us from being great. If we leave the European Union, then we can be great once again. And this is exactly the same sort of rhetoric. We leave the European Convention on Human Rights, then we can start building houses, we can fix schools, we can bring down the NHS waiting list, all this sort of rubbish. Now, of course, there was no mention of the Good Friday Agreement. A cornerstone of the Good Friday Agreement is the Human Rights Act, which is the UK's version of the European Convention on Human Rights in UK law. No mention of that. What's going to happen to the Good Friday Agreement? What's going to happen to the Human Rights Act in Northern Ireland? And unfortunately, and I've yet to hear a British politician being asked by a British journalist about this. Does it slip their mind? A cornerstone of the Good Friday Agreement, a cornerstone of peace in Northern Ireland, being just ignored completely. Now, this is all pandering to Nigel Farage. The new candidates, the remaining candidates, I should say, Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch, are pandering as much as they can to reform UK voters. They believe if they can win back some of the crazies, some of the racists and bigots, they can get back into number 10. Honestly, if they believe this, they're crazier than I thought. Now, it could be that Robert Jenrick is being a bit slippery here. He's pandering to the right, the far right of the party, in order to win the leadership, and then he'll move back to the centre. It's possible. Kemi Badenoch, I don't think she's going to do that. But if they want to win power, they need to move back to the centre. There's no way they can win over Reform UK voters by emulating Nigel Farage. They don't have the ability, they don't have his charisma. And when it comes to policies, both of these candidates are linked to the previous administrations. So as soon as they start talking about immigration, Farage can say, well, you when you were in charge, it was at record levels. And he'd be right. And what have they said to counter that? Well, if I get into power, I used to be, Robert Jenrick's case, I used to be the immigration minister. But it wasn't my fault. It was the Blob, or it was the civil service, or it was the French, or it was somebody else. It's always somebody else's fault. And Farage will point that out, and there's nothing he can do to counter it. This attempt to pander to Farage voters, to pander to a smaller and smaller extreme, will guarantee the Conservatives remain in opposition for the foreseeable future. And what could happen, which would be wonderful to see, is the Liberal Democrats leapfrog them. It would be wonderful to see the Liberal Democrats win Tory seats at the next election and become the official opposition. It would be a massive game changer. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.